to get a political outcome out of this tragedy. It is for those who, the family and those who are genuinely concerned about the death of this child, that we have a duty to thoroughly investigate this matter. I saw the anguish and pain on the faces of family members, the mother, and particularly the father last week, just before I came to this press conference, where he was inconsolable. And he said his gut feeling was that the child was in the hotel. And that's the pain of a father. I've seen it. And so we have a duty to him and the family. They need to know whether there was foul play or not. Last week, I also, at my press conference, I asked the police to release the video that they claimed they had supporting the statement that they made that the child left in a vehicle, and they gave the number and make of the vehicle. I said, how is it, I asked, how is it that you claim the child left, you said you had a video, and then the body was found in the pool? It's inconsistent with the fact. And why, how did the body, if the child left, reappear in the pool? Before my press conference ended, they then issued a statement saying that the initial statement was false. And then they subsequently issued another statement saying that it's the civilian staff who work at the command center. Now there is a command center to monitor cameras, the cameras that you see along the road. So there are people who work there who are not police. They watch the cameras all the time, and then if they see anything, a crime being committed or anything unusual, they then report it to the police. They're not police. So they claim that a young lady had provided false information and she was sent on leave. We still have to investigate that. We still have to investigate. And I suspect that in the thorough investigation promised by the president, all of those matters, including police action, will be reviewed and investigated. So, the family, through their lawyer, and directly requested of the president to allow them to bring in their own pathologist, because the government brought in a pathologist from Barbados, a world-renowned pathologist, but there were concerns that since the government brought him in, then the government maybe or the police would be involved in a cover-up of the cause of death. So the government of Ghana acceded to the family's request. They chose the pathologist, who is an international and a world-renowned pathologist. They brought him in on their own, at their own expenses. And then the government got two other international pathologists to be here so that they could jointly conduct the post-mortem. One from Mount Sinai and the other from Barbados. Now, the autopsy was witnessed by the family doctor, a nurse that the family had confidence in, the lawyer, Darren Wade, and several other persons. The post-mortem was videoed in its entirety so that if there is any doubt about its thoroughness, that could be reviewed. It's all there on video. this was not a regular autopsy. A regular autopsy would take about half an hour. This one took about 5 hours, and it is because it's a forensic autopsy, which is different than a regular autopsy determining cause of death. So, and they still have not completed the entire process because they've sent off samples to do the toxicology report to see if there is like any drug that may have been in the blood or any alcohol or anything of that, any substance. Now they started off, there were several claims made in the public domain about the child. A lot of them from social media. Now, there was this claim that there were several broken bones and the body was at different angles. I've seen lots of posts about that the body had several broken bones. So the first thing that they did is they sent the body for a CT scan and a X-ray, which came back and said, and for internal bleeding also, they would have looked at that. It was reported that that came back negative. There were no broken bones. This is what the lawyer said, who up to yesterday, I'll go through what Darren Wade himself said, but that was the first thing they did. Secondly, in the public domain, there was this view that you had a lot of trauma on the knee and the arms. I myself saw a picture, which was really terrible, with a child lying there and what seems like several bruises along the knee and the arm. And they also told the family that this is consistent with drowning. Now, all three pathologists, these are highly trained specialists. So that's the second thing that was in the public domain about these bruises on the arm, which seemed to be visible when the body came out. The third is that there was a worry that she may have been sexually assaulted, so they checked for that too. And they found that that was not so, because there were on social media a lot of this claim that she was sexually assaulted too. Then the issue, there was an issue that there was cotton in the nose. I saw the post from the doctor who witnessed it on behalf of the family, and he said that he can give an explanation about this. So they have an explanation about this. But Mr. Wade himself said, the lawyer, that they found no cotton in the nose. We still are waiting that explanation. But they found, that's what he said, no cotton in the nose. But it does seem like from the pictures circulated, some look, there was some white substance in the nose, similar to what was on the arm and leg of which was almost white when you look at the picture. It started like changing color. So these were several things we heard that they were looking for. And I'm not going to go through, I'm not a specialist. You have to be trained. These are highly trained people. They've done this for a living, to examine cause of death. So when I see some people, even me, I had concerns. I myself shared the view that this child was murdered. And for a moment, I did not even think about drowning. But now that the pathologist including the pathologists that they brought in, all concluded it's drowning. We have to follow the science, and all of the people who I see online, like some said now that they were next door and they heard the child screaming when they were contacted by the investigator who posted that online, said they hear it from. We've gotten the best pathologists around the world, 3 of them, and they did the forensic audit, and they checked for all these things. But some people believe they know more than the pathologists. Now, so it's a phenomenon you find in Guyana, that even a person who didn't finish primary school believes that we shouldn't go to school. Forget all these specialists. We have a duty to do that whilst finding out the truth about the child. We have a duty to follow the science. So we still have to go through that investigation. They are seeing some even wilder speculation that the PPP, Jagdeo and her finale sacrificed this child from some lunatics like Norman Brown, and we did it to win the elections, and then some Ronald Austin, etc., and somehow disparaging the whole Hindu faith, because when I was on the Essequibo coast, I went to one of the temples and participated in some of the activities there, disparage the whole Hindu faith. But this is typical behavior of the extremists and the PNC too. And they're pushing this about that there are rituals about elections and that we did this to win the elections. We have won elections because we've worked hard for people's support, and you see it every day. That's why we win elections. And we have been respectful of people of every faith, and they're part of this party. And only ungodly people will push this sort of thing. Ungodly, demonic people really will push this sort of thing. And it's vile. It's vile that they would actually desecrate the memory of this child by saying someone sacrificed her. And it comes all the time from the opposition and those associated with them. They never lost an election. One time it was Mercury that helped us win the elections. The Russians helped us win the elections. Somebody else helped us win the elections. We stole the elections. Now they're claiming that we sacrificed this child. Although the autopsy said it's it's drowned. But they keep at it because they can reach some gullible people. Which party does carry lime on the street and cut out Falkirk head and stuff in their protests? It's which, you know which party? It's the PNC in their protests. We don't engage in that sort of thing. They work on UNO and we're OBIA and all kind of thing. Every protest they've had, they were working on Janet Jagan. They come in the lead of the opposition office. They used to come outside and throw down some powder and squeeze some lime and do all sorts of things. Every time. We don't believe in that sort of thing, this demonic sort of thing. We support people of every faith. They have a right in this country to freely practice their religion. But all of this gets, distorted by the extremists because they don't care about the child and justice for this child. They're all political. And I suspect if we're not so close to elections, they would have ignored this totally, some of them. So, when the extremism, a lot of them now have started, so they're very extremist in their views. Now, a lot of them, almost everyone is saying their account was hacked and they're starting to pull down all the vile things that they were saying. So suddenly, their accounts were hacked, etc. So on the day of the postmortem, when the autopsy was being conducted, they claimed that we were, again, covering things up because it was taking too long, but they did not know that it was a forensic autopsy witnessed by the lawyer and the family doctors and everyone there, including the 3 doctors. So there were clearly people who went there that were not seeking justice for Adriana. They were there for other motives and other purposes. It was clear as daylight. If you listen to the audio from some of the videos that have been posted, even when after the autopsy was done and explanations were given, they were not interested in the explanation. They were trying to drown it out because the explanation did not fit into the purpose of why they were there. So they've even turned on people who've been there right at the beginning, like Darren Wade. I saw they criticized him because he reported what he saw. He said the pathologists did a thorough job and went beyond what is normally done in an examination, that they all witnessed it, that the pathologists were prepared to meet with the media. However, the protests prevented them from doing this because, there were threats to the people. They had to be escorted out. They were prepared to meet with the whole media to explain and be questioned by the media all the circumstances around the autopsy, but I suspect people didn't want that to happen, to see the pathologists themselves, because these are consummate professionals giving explanations, so they sabotaged the press briefing. Darren Wade again said the marks on her skin were consistent with someone drowning. That was the finding. The body had no broken bones or fractures. She was not sexually assaulted, and she drowned. All of this, he said, he witnessed it. That was part of the autopsy. So the crowd there, some of the people, not all, you had some people who were legitimately concerned about this child and getting justice. Across the board, across ethnicity, across politics, people were are concerned about this child, the circumstances of her death. PPP people, PNC people, and everyone in between were concerned. And so they wanted to find out the truth. And I suspect some people there were there in support of the family. But a lot of people were mobilized to come there. And we know they were mobilized because the intelligence is coming out, and more of it will come out shortly about who was mobilizing them. And it goes right back to the political actors, can be traced right back to the political people. From the beginning when they showed up there, the day that the body was found, Adriana was found, they've been making public statements about it, but privately mobilizing people to capitalize on this. So a lot of the people were there mobilized and led by individuals who were associated with the PNC and the AFC. They were led by them. The signals were coming from them. They were directing people how to act. And it's no secret that at one stage the police had to deal with maybe 15 fires at the same time around the city, lit by people on motorcycles who were getting central directives where to go. So they were moving swiftly and just lighting a fire and moving on to another area to create this air of unease and to bring discomfort to a lot of people, fear, spread fear. APNU's currency is rigging elections and spreading fear. They've done it historically at election time to create a sense of unease in the population. And that was the purpose of this exercise, not justice for Adriana, because we want the same thing. We want to know what happened with this child. But they're not there for that. And so the objective was terror. The objective was terror. And that's why they mobilized in several communities. And then at some stage, some criminal elements took over. At some stage, and then they started looting people's property. You tell me how fetching away a TV from courts has anything to do with getting justice for Adriana Young. Do you tell me what explanation you can give to that? Or fetching away a bale of toilet paper from a Chinese supermarket have anything to do with justice for this child? And yet there are people out there who are defending this on social media, because no matter what you'd say, the trolls are there, the PNC, they have some of the vile people there, and they're just pushing this line, and often it's a racist line. So this is what took place, and they're mobilizing these kids across the country. They say, oh, I see now that some of these kids don't have work. We can find work for everyone. You know, in Region 4 here, we have labor shortages. We can find work for people. But a lot of the kids who are out there, some on their own, not all of them were mobilized by the PNC. Some saw this as an opportunity to loot, basically, some people. And so a significant number was mobilized by the PNC. And so it was not surprising to me when the leader of the opposition, Mr. Norton, came on the air and he said that it's the PPP that infiltrated the protests and was causing all the looting because we put the 10 days workers in the protests to cause the looting. Now, they've done this before. There's not been a single time when innocent people have been harmed or when they spread terror by arson or burning things, or when people they generate fear in the communities, that the PNC has not blamed us. And when it's clear that it is people mobilized by them. And so the moment these people get caught and are charged and placed before the court, their lawyers show up, although they're supposed to be PPP supporters. They show up to defend these so-called PPP supporters that we plant in these protests to harm people. That's a different, the PPP works at bringing people together, not harming them. We want people to own things, not to burn things. We want our kids to be educated. We're providing education for them, all of these youngsters to get a job, etc. That's what we're working toward. We believe in inclusion, not mobilizing them or keeping them uneducated or with a victim's mindset so you can mobilize them for your political cause when you have incidents like this. That's what PNC wants to do. It's their approach. So he said that, this is what he said, that we want to mobilize the mayhem and create mayhem so we can not have a proper investigation. We've already committed to that. We're committed to the family bringing in their pathologists. We brought in some of the best pathologists too to work with that. The family witnessed, their lawyer, their doctor. This is a transparency in a government that you wouldn't get in many other countries. You wouldn't get that in many other countries because if there is anything, police were involved in a cover-up or anything, we want to find the truth too, and we've demonstrated. When we find the truth, people face consequences, like we did with Brutus. So we're not interested in one bit of a cover-up. But he just said the 10 days workers. Now the 10-day workers, these are about 15,000 people in all the regions across the country, and mainly women who didn't have a job that we gave a job to, but he criminalized 15,000 people by calling them PPP criminals. That is what the leader of the opposition did. But he did this because, that's their modus operandi. So generate the fear in the country, which suits their political purpose. Then, when the people are beaten or robbed or like the homeless and the people stabbed or there is arson done or looting, then distance yourself from it. This is typical APNU AFC way of operating. If you want, there are hundreds of historical antecedents. You can find antecedents of this. This is a pattern of behavior throughout that they've had. And you know, a number of people, because there are a large number of people who supported APNU in the past, who have come to the PPP. And they said to me, you know, in the past, we would have actually believed this. We would have actually believed this, but now we're seeing it differently. They said that. And some said to me, you know, I'm ashamed of this behavior. And I said, why are you ashamed? You didn't do it. We're not blaming, this is not about blaming Afro-Guyanese. This is about mobilizing kids and criminals, and a few of them, to harm people across this country. And when you burn a building, or you loot a store, or you block a road, it affects everyone, all the people of our country, and including of every race. But this is, so I want people who've been calling me and saying they're ashamed of this, don't call me. Nobody is blaming you, because we know what's going on. We know what's going on. And so a lot of people would have believed this. And you still have those in the opposition who would repeat this, that we put the people in the protests to loot, that the looting is caused by the PPP. But you have to really be blinkered, and this is what Norton did, and the others, the AFC and others. They were putting the blame on the PPP, but they were busy mobilizing people. I know, and the evidence will come out later. They paid some people to actually come there. One person actually paid some people to come there and create mayhem, because they think it will serve them politically. So we have a duty, as I said before, to thoroughly investigate this matter, but we also have a duty to protect the people of this country, all of them, when they go about their business. So when they're building a home, they must not worry that someone will burn their home or their car, if they own a car, or walk down the street and because somebody wants to rob them out of a protest that has nothing sometimes to do with a cause, but it's simply because to spread mayhem. The state has a duty to do that. And now that they've all said they don't support looting and any of this stuff, I hope they support the police when we take condign action against all the perpetrators. So now that they claim they didn't support looting or anything of the sort, and that it's PPP that did all of the looting and everything, so now the police have a free rein to act in a professional manner, but in manner keeping with the maintenance of law and order, the police and the army. So when action is taken against all of those who instigated as well as perpetrated the acts, and they're as guilty. And so now the police have made it clear that all of the people who have been posting videos of themselves committing acts of crime, it's a stupid thing, but you actually have people posting videos of themselves committing criminal acts. Then a lot of others who think that they're safe because they make a post on Facebook, that nobody will come after them if they're instigating arson or murder or any acts of that sort, that they are going to face the full force of the law. And that is why so many of them now are pulling down their Facebook posts, but the damage was done. They were instigating people along on the day when we had the trouble. They were instigating them and urging people to burn public buildings and do all sorts of things. And to harm people based on race. They were doing this, on their ethnicity and race. So now some of them are starting to quickly say, oh, we were hacked. Well, the cybercrime unit will know whether you were hacked or not. And then you would have to be charged because, as the police said, you'll be charged with some criminal offenses which speaks about spreading terror, because that's spreading terror. And you can be charged against under the Terrorism Act, including those authors. The police have already started putting up a lot of the videos. They're going to go after these individuals, now with the full support of the opposition, because they claim these are PPP people. So we, the police and the army, must not look at which party they belong to. They must just go after them, anyone who has committed a criminal act, and charge them, place them before the court. We have already made it clear that a lot of these people will be put on a no-fly list, and we will share all of their information with the international community, because when people process visas and everything else, then they would look at people who incite public terror, that they should face those consequences. And so a lot of those who are out there now and who think they can continue to capitalize on this, they will face the full brunt of law enforcement action. And I'm so pleased that the AFC and the PNC said they're opposed to it, and some others, and that it's a PPP call in this. Because really, what they're saying is that you have to arrest the PPP members who are doing this. So I've never heard such nonsense I've heard such nonsense in my life frequently in the past, because I've been around for a while and I've seen the PNC operate. They have a faltering cause. They have nothing to campaign on, absolutely nothing to campaign on, except people a fear of the future and being insecure in their own homes. And that's what the currency that is being played out now, and they're using the tragic event of this child's death to deal with it. As the father said, you will be dishonoring Adriana's memory if you practice violence, that she was not violent. That is the father speaking. Oh, but they don't care too much about it. They don't care about it. And so we have to take serious action. I'm pleased that the police has put out an SOP, or updated their SOP to speak about how the police must act when there is a report of a missing child and some other vulnerable groups, like people with disability, etc. The normal protocol is to wait 24 hours. In the past, when the PNC was also supporting like some criminal types to harm the country, we used to put out almost immediately, if there is a kidnapping or anything, immediately a notice goes out. So the police have now said that once there is a report anywhere about a child, I'm going to not deal with the other groups now, but a child, immediately a report must go out. They have to notify the media, they have to notify a senior officer, and action has to be taken immediately. You can't wait 24 hours like an adult or so. When the report comes in, it has to be acted upon immediately. So now that is the new operating procedure. From the time a report goes in about a child that's missing, they have to act immediately, not to wait no period to see whether the person is really missing. That's how they used to treat it in the past. So I would urge you to read the SOPs and publicize it, because now we have to hold them accountable, because it's not just notifying someone, but it gets all the way up to the commissioner, the chief of staff, and everybody. They get reports about the missing child. And then it's taken, so right from the bottom, they have to act all the way to with the knowledge of the people at the top. Let us now hold them to account for that, so that in future that will happen. We'd have to examine whether it works in practice now that it's part of a standard SOP in the police force. I want to say to the people of the country who might be fearful, I understand, because no mother or father would want their kids to go to school when they're fearful that someone is burning the road. No, people don't want to come to Georgetown if they're afraid that they'd be caught on the road in a burning fire or someone would rob them. I can understand this. This is the fear that I'm talking about. The fear that the opposition loves. They thrive in this fear. You notice that they were dead, practically dead, for the last 4 years and several months into this year. Nothing comes out of them. They've grown, they've got new energy now. And the energy is not about the child, it's about themselves and their political motive. They're the only ones who have to thrive on this fear. If that succeeds, and it will not succeed, but if that succeeds, we have no future in this country if we allow people like them to succeed that will do things to harm our country. So we understand what's going on. And that brings me to the other incident where, to add to this, what was going on, this acid attack on kids and teachers on the East Coast. And that was even more pernicious, and I think it was orchestrated, because when Priya Manikchan took the family or went with them to the hospital, and I spoke with her at the hospital that same day, because all day we were taking calls, because people were calling in to say a fire is here, something is there, or something else, all day long. And we were trying to manage that and the fear too that people had about their kids and going home from work and all that sort of thing. So I spoke with her at the hospital, and she said that it's not a domestic issue. You know, sometimes these things happen in domestic disputes and stuff, that this was a random thing. And it was the diluted acid. And I think acid, and I think that it was intent to spread fear. Because just think about families. Children raises a lot of emotions in our country, rightfully so. People are concerned. And it could be any child. Your child walking along with a group like what happened there, and somebody randomly comes up and throws something on them. And it was designed to create fear. So I hope they have footages of these people. I hope that they get arrested. They will be arrested and then get charged for attempted murder, so they'll sit in prison a long time. And maybe then they can tell us about the intellectual authors of this fair. This didn't happen just like that. It was designed to spread fear into parents. And this is not just about Indo-Guyanese parents. Just so happened that it was done in an Indo-Guyanese community. Again, to spread fear there. But imagine if you're a parent, regardless of where you live, and you have your child, you're worried now about that. This is part of the campaign of terror that they always have waged. They've always waged, to hopefully to advance political motives. But we'd have to take serious action. The police are on it. They would have to find those people and deal with them, and then find out the intellectual authors behind this attempt to spread fear. I want to also say that when right from the beginning, there's been a lot of, and even on that story, so many social media disinformation on it. Like the one about the speaker refusing to hold a minute of silence for Adriana. It's not true. They were spreading this all around the place. He said, at the appropriate time, because you go through the standing order, and there is a time when you can do this. They lie perniciously every single day to whip up fear among people. And some people just are show-offs and useless people. Some of them, they don't know anything. They just want to be seen on social media. Those are probably the worst ones. They just don't, they inflame situations by inventing stories. And it used to happen in the past, but it never used to spread so much because, mainstream media. These are, as I said before, the police force and the army will protect the people of this country. They have a duty to protect the people of this country. I'm pleased that, as I said before, that they all claim they are not supporting looting and burning, etc., that no political party is supporting it, so that anyone who is attempting to rob anyone or to break the curfew or to loot, etc., the full force, the brunt of the enforcement action will be taken against them, because the consequences will be as a result of their own action. If you don't want to face tough police or army action, don't go and rob people or loot them or beat people up. I just want to say congratulations to the UNC, Caribbean country. The UNC won the elections in Trinidad and Tobago, and I wish to congratulate them. But what was so appealing to me about the elections there is that I saw a video of former Prime Minister Rowley and former Prime Minister Stuart Young standing up at their party's headquarters, the PNM's headquarters, at around, I don't know the exact time, maybe around 9 p.m., 10 p.m. on election night, on Monday night. And before the Elections Commission in Trinidad had issued preliminary results, said, we're conceding we lost the elections, before the preliminary results were announced by the Elections Commission. They then congratulated the UNC and they said, we will work hard. We've been in this position before. We'll work hard in the future to come back into power. That is the maturity that differentiates their politics from ours. And I wish that it could be the same here in Guyana. When we lost the 2015 elections, you didn't see any protests or burning or anything else. We exited office, we said we'll come back. We asked for recounts, we didn't get the recounts, but we said we'll come back. Look at the PNC AFC track record. Not just losing elections, but trying to steal elections like the 2020 elections. Knew they lost and hung on to power for 5 months after they lost. 5 months they were operating like their government, using the resources, everything else. They were squatting in government, spending a lot of money, and then lying to the people. Patterson saying he saw the SOPs that showed them winning. Norton claiming he had the SOPs. Ramjatan and Kashiyu said the Russians helped us win the elections. They have no class, no dignity, no love for the country. They're just, as we've seen recently, in their negotiations to come together, they're just too greedy. All they're talking about is sharing positions. Which position, which board they will get, how many boards they will get, how many positions, public corporations they'll manage. They're not even thinking about professionals getting the job, you know. So like how they put the guy at the EPA, the AFC member. You had the professional here, he went off, and then they put the AFC member. So all these political corporations, or not the public corporations, they're sharing up who will head them now. So career public servants can't think about getting up to the top anymore because they're splitting up the spoils before they won the election, not that they will win the elections. So that is the greed that they're demonstrating. I wish we play that video to show PM Rowley, who is the political head of the party, former Prime Minister Rowley, and Short Young, and see what they said. They congratulated the UNC. Even UNC, I don't think had declared at that time. They had not declared their victory yet. And they came out and said, we lost the elections, and it's going to be a big loss. We're going to lose a lot of seats. And they even gave a projection, and they said, we congratulate the other side, we will live to fight another day. We're an old party. And that is why, that's the difference. Here, this is what we have to contend with, the AFC and the PNC. And that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention. Not just congratulate the UNC, but show how mature the politics is in that country. Now, tomorrow will be Labor Day, and I want to wish everyone, particularly workers, a happy Labor Day. And often these activities are celebrated in a routine, almost perfunctory manner. People they march to the park, they hear some speeches, and then they go back home. And then we wait until another year and repeat it. But this day should be used to celebrate and track progress made in the country in relation to labor. So today, in a very short way, because I've done so many times before, but in a short way, I want to say what the labor situation is in Guyana today compared to when we took office. So we have now 60,000 people who are working, who are not working at that time. So you know the dignity of work is so important to people. If they don't have work, and then almost it changes their whole outlook on life if they can't find a job. Not everyone has a job. Not everyone has a job that they want because they're aspiring for a better job, and we have to work towards that. But at least 60,000 people more are working now than who were working under APNU. Their period was characterized by a loss of jobs in the 5 years, even before, not associated with COVID. Forget the COVID loss. But in every sector, in sugar, in the bauxite industry, 1,000 workers in the Kwakwani area lost their jobs. In gold mining, tons of people lost their jobs. In the forestry sector, in retail trade. Generally, people talk about slow business. There was no money in circulation, etc. Lots of people lost their jobs. So in the 5 years under the PP, or the 4.5, maybe 5, close to 5 years, 60,000 people more are working. We have in the outlying regions at least 15,000 part-time workers, mainly women, who Norton called criminal, who are now working. They have 40,000 a month. They then work for 10 days. They get a chance to study, etc. That was not there before. Now they're earning billions of dollars per year. The Amerindian communities outside of the part-time job, they got 3,000 nearly CSOs who didn't have a job when APNU was in office, because APNU took away the jobs from nearly 2,000 of them. So when you talk about jobs to people on Labor Day, that is what you should really be talking about tomorrow. Who has generated more jobs? What is your track record on generating jobs? And the reason they don't generate jobs is because they focus only on distribution of money that we don't even have as yet. Not about creating employment, except for themselves. You remember the jobs for the geriatrics? And all of them had the cushy jobs. They had jobs for geriatrics. I don't want to even go through. I can go through the list and tell you who they found jobs for. And you had to be like over 90 to get a good job under APNU. You think I'm joking? One day I'll actually do it and show you all these agencies. They were stacking up with people like that. Young people didn't have a chance. You ask the same Christopher Jones and James Bond and others what they got in that period. They were just pushed aside, all the young people. And so that is first thing that you have to look at. Then what about the quality of the labor? So the quality of labor and the opportunity to earn more comes with education. So 30,000 scholarship through the GOLD program, and another 20,000 trained through WIN and the BIT. 50,000 people more paid for by the government being trained. So not just more jobs, but more training to people to get a better quality labor force. That is what we have chalked up in the 5 years. What did we chalk up in scholarship 1,000 scholarships, mainly for Simona Brooms and her family and the others. That's the comparison. So on Labor Day, it is crucial to make these comparisons. Then, teachers training. 2,000 being trained, another 4,000 on the GOAL program. And when they complete the training, they get an allowance to, if they have a master's, a bachelor's or a master's or a doctorate, they get paid an allowance commensurate with the increased qualification. But we hired 3,000 teachers more, from 12,000 to 15,000, and that has made us now, given us one of the lowest teacher to student ratios in the world. So more trained teachers too. That is what we have chalked up. We have signed multi-year agreements going back to collective bargaining. That used to be a big cry of the teachers union, GPSU, etc., that the PNC, everybody, violated collective bargaining. We have multi-year agreements now with GPSU, with the Guyana Teachers Union, and with GAU. 3 massive unions that we have multi-year agreements with. That means through a negotiated process, not the imposition of wages. That's a far cry from before. The third issue is the tax measures for workers. We have now not just increased the threshold, but we have added now to that an allowance for overtime work, 50,000 of your overtime tax-free. If you have a second job, you get another 50,000 tax-free. So the labor force now, if you work hard, you can get more, keep more money. That is apart from the other tax measures that we have put in place, like an allowance for family, so that you can increase your threshold up to, I think, two kids. If you have, then you can get a significant amount non-taxable of your salary. We have the NIS issue, the 10,000 workers who did not get help, got their help through the pension system. And then now another 25,000 workers who had made contributions but could not get back any benefit. They're now going to get that back. That is the labor force, the past and current labor force will benefit from this. House lots for workers, but I'm not going to go there on health care for workers and stuff like that. This is what has happened. The cost of living interventions that we made, subsidize electricity, subsidize water to keep the price like at 2020 level, affects workers too. So I would hope that when you analyze progress on Labor Day, you will hear Norton go there or somebody and make a speech, oh, nothing has happened, etc. You never do this sort of painstaking but important comparison of how labor relations have improved. They've done 4,800 workplace inspections in the several years that we've been in office. Lots of the occupational health and safety bill has been upgraded to make sure our workers are better off. The local content law has pushed the oil and gas company to hire nearly 10,000 people, bring more jobs to our people, and that we were giving to foreigners, because you can't give a foreigner if we have the requisite skill. Here, that is what we have done. So I think labor and people who working people, have made enormous progress in these years. Public servants, they are now getting, the public sector workers are getting $105 billion more per year than they got in 2020. Go and check the numbers. Check the figures from 2020 and look at 2025 in the 3 agencies, the public corporations, the statutory agencies, and the public service. Add the three together, you will see $105 billion or 500 million US more per year in wages and salaries and benefits. Now, that's the progress that we have made. We've restored the joint services 1 month tax-free bonus that they took away. That's a labor force. They get back there 1 month. That costs nearly $2 billion. I can go on and list a lot of things. So when tomorrow people give speeches, I hope it's not sterile. They would ignore, the opposition will ignore all of this. They would ignore everything else and then say, oh, discrimination, racism. That's the only thing they would talk about, racism, which is nonsense. Really nonsense. So I hope that tomorrow, as I wish people a happy Labor Day, that we start doing this sort of introspection, because that never gets done. I had a great opportunity last week to engage a number of students from the university and the sixth form and from some of the schools in the country. And this was arranged by the Economic Society of UG. They asked me to speak with them and have an interaction. So we had a really good interaction there. And I was really pleased that people are just thinking about the future. And they're not going to be caught up with this nonsense that passes off for analysis in so-called social media. So when you get to that forum, or a forum of that nature, you can explore ideas a bit more than at a press conference. Because press conference, I'm very conscious that people have, time restrictions, and if it gets too long, they get bored, etc. But I said to the students there that sometimes starting points matter, and that people have to use a framework to analyze economic development that focuses on economic history and have a longer time horizon in which they utilize material for analysis of progress. I gave an example of something I spoke of a few weeks ago here, right here. So people been asking me about the exchange rate movement and the unavailability of currency. And I said to the reporters that we're watching this carefully, and that where the central bank is examining the foreign exchange market equilibrium, so that we examine total aggregate supply to the market and aggregate demand. And when that is misaligned, we intervene. So, for example, if demand is more than supply, we intervene by selling currency into the system. So we have been doing this consistently because the demand for real transactions, both of a recurrent nature and a capital nature, has grown enormously. People are bringing in factories, equipment, they need more foreign currency, and they're financing it not from FDIs, foreign direct investments, but from the local banking system and the local foreign currency market. Then there's also demand for recurrent purposes. So people are consuming more, they want more meat, they want different kinds of, if you go to the supermarkets now, a broader range of product. So that puts upward pressure on the demand for foreign currency. So we're tracking it. And I said that we will intervene so that it doesn't become misaligned. And that we are concerned also about the depreciation, because major depreciation could cause an increase in inflation, but major appreciation of the currency could cause us to go down the route of the Dutch disease. So I then saw a big public debate by some of the specialists, but that's good that there's a public debate, something talking about real exchange rate, the real effective exchange rate, the nominal effective exchange rate, all of these technical terms. And though all of those things are valid because you have to adjust nominal exchange rate by your trade weights and often by inflation to get to these issues. So valid. But if you don't understand in economics that there is short run, there is something called short run and long run. So in the short run, you have to tackle the nominal exchange rate. So if the exchange rate, when you look at, is overvalued, over the long run, it finds its equilibrium back. But in the short run, you have to tackle the policy metric that you use is the nominal exchange rate. Now, for an academic, I see the big debate there. That doesn't seem to resonate. But for a practitioner of policies, so when you practice this sort of thing, economics, and you're confronted with having to deal with this on a daily basis, that's the variable that you use. And so if the students get seduced by all of these technical terms, that was what I was making, and they don't understand that there is the world of academia and then the world of real economics. And sometimes you have to, if people get caught up in that sort of conflict, when it should really not be a conflict. And so students have to have long run kind of vision of that. And that is why the economic history of this country needs to be written, the point I'm making again. And because starting points matter for students of economics. So when you check where we are today, you have to go back and check where we were 20 years ago. And you know what they are. Bankrupt, insolvent, poorer than Haiti, etc. Today, to the most dynamic economy in this region and in the world. And even before oil, we had gotten there. We had settled our macroeconomic fundamentals. It had become sustainable. So it was a good opportunity to talk to students about that. But what was so heartening to me is that a lot of people are thinking, and so they ask me a lot, where do you think we should study in the future? What to focus on? Because they asked about jobs, and I said, you're going to have lots of jobs here, but you have to pick the right areas too. And they wanted me to say, so people have to be retooled for this new economy. So they asked me, where are the new jobs going to come? And I spoke of the sectors that we expect the jobs of the future to come in. That would be high pay. And so I said to the children from GTI, they were very interested in this. Those subjects now, we have to support them to do those kinds of things. So AI and a whole smart agriculture, a whole range of things, the digital society and all the skills that we need, cybersecurity, a whole range of stuff. So we spoke of that. And then one young girl asked me, all this talk about AI, but you have jobs obsolescence. And it will be a major problem around the world. And a very thoughtful question. Because if you're using AI now to replace people from doing functions, where would you now accommodate these people job-wise? And that's why we have to think about that. Globally, this is a problem. Here in Guyana, it's an opportunity for us. With a small workforce, we can, and with the huge need for labor that will come in the future, we'll be able to accommodate our people. Not so in many parts of the world. So we'd have to refashion the whole entire model of how we approach this issue. So if AI can work for us and we can earn as much wealth or more as a country than we are using physical labor, we have to keep our people occupied elsewhere and then have them have more time for themselves. So if you can earn the same money in 2 days a week, we can rest 5 days a week instead and switch the other thing. Not that I'm proposing this next week. You would see in the manifesto suggestions, a lot of people would support that. Working 2 days a week. I was in Success over the weekend. Well, normally I just convene these meetings. So Saturday night I said I want to go to 5 communities on the East Coast. And we had good turnout. And the week before it was like 11. And so I saw the AFC. The guy, some Onyx Duncan, some clown, I don't know who he is. He is their chairman on the East Coast. And he posted all my meetings. And then he said, protest every one of those meetings. So I'm waiting for them to show up. The AFC machinery now posted this and all over the place they say. So none of them showed up at 4 of the meetings. In Plaisance, 4 of them showed up, but not AFC. The PNC councillor at the NDC there and 3 others, making a lot of noise. But I had a huge meeting there at Plaisance. So there, and it was Afro-Guyanese communities, Indo-Guyanese communities. So their ability to mobilize is nonsense. Except for using tragedy, they can't mobilize around anything else. But that was just like a side issue. I had to get that in there. So let me come back to the issue. And so they asked very telling questions again about how do we balance oil and social development or environmental credentials. And I hope that you follow what, because I think it's posted online. I don't know if they posted it online. They posted it online, so you can do that. But then one young guy from QC spoke about how are we going to engage, because on social media, the same thing, that people just could believe anything. And if they're so gullible, how do we ensure that foreign ideas don't infiltrate us that are harmful to really national growth and development? Because sometimes the foreign ideas are not best suited for our country. That is why I even in the lecture I was talking about the unorthodox approach to economic development that you have to pursue, or even to bypassing some of these models that are prescribed from abroad. So you're saying, but if our people are so attuned to foreign ideas, those might infiltrate them. And I said, we don't have the answers to reaching people. How do we reach? I was also at another place and someone introduced me to his 2 daughters. And he asked them, you're on Facebook? No. They were not. They're only on Instagram and TikTok. And they don't even know, well, some of what's going on in the country. And these are bright kids, very, very bright kids. So how do we, that is, I think, it was such a question that I was really taken back by it, because there is this young guy thinking about one of the biggest challenges we have. How do we get our young people to get to serious messages? Because they're on a medium that will just promote sometimes in a very perfunctory way. Somebody posts a picture of what meal they eat and stuff like that. That's not bad, but You know, you can't get to the depth of politics. So Gordon Mosley will put a headline, misleading headline on Instagram. You know, Jagdeo says this, and then suddenly that's the news they get without it being nuanced. They didn't see the whole story. They just see an inflammatory headline or something of that sort, and they believe that's all they read on Instagram. So how do we get this done? And it's a national project that we need to undertake, and we don't have the answers. We don't have the answers to this, because how do you tell a young person to try to come onto platforms where you can get more serious messaging when they may not be interested? And it's a societal issue now, because if we don't do that, people can control the minds of our people. And I think he was worried more about, I'm not sure I got him correctly, but I think he was more worried about the foreign ideas infiltrating our national psyche and ethos. That was a really good question. I thought that it's important for us. I'm so pleased that the Starbuck News has this article where it says Guyana Sovereign Wealth Fund able to withstand impact of any global shocks. And it points out for all of those who are talking nonsense, we're not saving enough, etc. Although we're rebuilding the country, although oil is only 37% of the budget, funds 37% of the budget, the article makes the point that we have in the Sovereign Wealth Fund 13% of GDP, their money in the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Now it goes up and comes down, but that's around it. Significant, and we can withstand shocks. But this is something that they said at the press conference in Washington. We are seeing very good management in Guyana. Now, this would give our newest presidential candidate, Glenn Lal, a nightmare for the oil and gas sector. Our newest candidate who will become the new president. I saw he was in Crabwood Creek campaigning now. He will get a night. He quotes the IMF on everything under the sun. If they say something negative, this is what they said about the oil and gas sector in Guyana. We're seeing very good management in Guyana. It's in the Starbuck News article. It's on the press conference. So I hope that all of those people who are talking, this is the International Monetary Fund that assesses all of your management tools, how you treat with public finances, etc. They're here for an Article 4 consultation. They did a thorough review of all the accounts, all the monetary account, the fiscal account, the national accounts, etc. And the BOP, they look at everything. They look at our oil and gas sector, the savings, the thing that they spoke about, and then they said, over time, we hope that you narrow the gap between revenue and expenditure. That's the fiscal deficit, and we made it clear that that will happen naturally because a lot of the capital projects that are contribute to the fiscal deficit now, they'll be completed. So when you finish the roads and the highways and the bridges and the power plants, then you don't need to have that as part of your expenditure profile. So our expenditure profile will come down steeply in the few years to come, and our revenue profile is projected to grow. So this is good, they said, good management in Guyana of the oil and gas sector of the economy. And it's grudgingly, well, not grudgingly, I think Marcel Thomas wrote it, so it's more balanced. It would be more balanced. Some of the other, right, yes. What's her name? If the other one wrote it, be dead. What? I forgot her name. Having said that, I need to let me look at the oil spill legislation. So AFC ponders if oil spill bill is a political gimmick ahead of elections. So remember, this was the politician who they put to head the EPA. You're a politician, AFC man. They love to talk about technical agencies and technical competence. Well, they put a politician to head here, had a sordid, dismal, useless track record in the period that he managed the EPA. They had the weakest environmental permit. It's the same period in which they signed the 2016 agreement, hid the signing bonus, all of that. He was in the AFC or around the AFC in that period. So they have a terrible track record. And they've been claiming that the $2 billion, I dealt with this last week, $600 million in insurance, then $2 billion in parent guarantee, and then the assets of the company are not adequate to cover an oil spill. So a year almost ago, I said, we're working on this legislation. It's not of recent vintage. If you recall here, 1 year, nearly, maybe 6-8 months ago, I said, we're going to get it to Parliament. I was hoping before the end of the year. I pointed out the difficulties in doing that. And now we have a bill. So he thinks it's an election gimmick. We're thinking about giving us the tools to manage the oil spill. But, so this bill makes the oil and gas companies and also any other company that's responsible for a spill offshore, including shipping companies, liable for all of the damages, including cleaning up of the place. So I suspect Nigel Hughes may have gotten a call from Exxon to say, we don't want that, because I don't think they want a bill. In fact, they've said that in private comments that they need to cap liabilities, and we're saying no. You are responsible for all liabilities associated with an oil spill. You have to clean it up, as well as the loss of business, etc. So let us see, but imagine this shameless group talking about the oil and gas sector. The same AFC. Shameless. Their leader is still on Exxon payroll. The leader is on Exxon payroll. How could we ever forget this? The man gets paid every month by Exxon. And they should be ashamed to talk about this. There seems to be a major double standard in how people deal with some incidents. So, an assault on PPP supporters. And so one person as influential as the editor of Starbuck News posted that PPP supporters are unthinking PPP supporters. Our supporters don't think. I think it might be, I don't know if it is, but if it is a racist position. But clearly, he believes the large group of supporters, the 236,000 people who voted for us in the last elections, many are into doctors, lawyers, nurses, teachers, in every profession, farmers, fishermen, etc. They don't think. That the thinking is reserved for people like him, where our supporters are unthinking. Then the guy who is a serial abuser of women, who is caught stealing electricity, tax evasion, lied in an affidavit in the courts, etc., Kian Jabur, speaks about nasty, stinking PPP supporters. This is the vile abuse that every day, one is an editor of a newspaper, and another one is a political figure from a party. That's their view of PPP supporters. If someone else says this about APNU, they would say it's racist immediately. They would say it's racist. But they can say this sort of thing. Amanza Walton, who the GHRA asked to take a petition to the parliament, they couldn't find anyone else. She thinks Indo-Guyanese are mentally lazy. She's on record as saying Indo-Guyanese are mentally lazy. So, the same GHRA and the Human Rights, the Gender Equality Commission and the Red Thread, up to now they didn't condemn the attack on those kids and teachers that who were subjected to the acid assault. Up to now they didn't. So it seems as though these are PNC, well, at least to the Red Thread and GHRA are PNC aligned organizations. They're very selective in their condemnation. We in the PPP, we condemn acts of violence unreservedly. We don't judge people on the basis of their race or their religion. We don't assess their mental capability on the basis of their religion or their race. Because, frankly speaking, you have smart people in every race and you have stupid people in every race. And in every religion. And that's a fact of life. And everybody knows this. You have to be bigoted to do this. But they are unthinking PPP supporters, nasty stinking PPP supporters all day long on public airwaves, trying to make, because PPP supporters express a contrary view to what they have and expose the wickedness they do. This is a vile attack on PPP supporters, and sometimes they lead to the targeting of PPP supporters, this sort of thing. They make them a bullseye. But we're not going to rest, we call them out. That's why I'm calling them out now. We call them out. They just believe that, imagine you're a responsible person and posting this. Whole group of people. And now, they would do this sort of thing. So I haven't seen them condemn anything so far. Monday, I think, would be emancipation, not emancipation, the arrival day. And I want to wish everyone, all Guyanese, a happy holiday. And also to those people, well, the indigenous people have an entire month. We have Emancipation Day and Arrival Day. And this shows that we, as a nation, we recognize and celebrate our diversity. And I want to wish everyone well, all those who came to Ghana, in whatever way, Afro-Guyanese transported here through the horrific system of slavery, Indo-Guyanese and people of Chinese descent and Portuguese descent and others were brought here in tough circumstances too. And then the indigenous people here, we've all worked together to forge a country, and we keep working together to forge a bright future for ourselves and our children. And so I hope that everyone would celebrate this, all Guyanese, because it's part of who we are. And so every one of these holidays belong to all of us because we are of Guyanese blood. So thank you very much.
Dr. Jagdeo, good afternoon. Banu Manakchan, the Guyana Times. Can you say if government is open to facilitate an independent international investigation into Adriano Young's death in light of the families as well as public
So the
lack
president, on that matter, the president has made it clear there'll be a thorough investigation. We have to leave that to be determined, but a thorough investigation is what he promised. And so I don't want to second guess the president. He said, he made it clear, I want to find out the truth of the matter. So he promised a thorough investigation. So we'd have to leave it to the president, but I have great faith that the investigation will be thorough. We want to find out the truth, we in the PPP too.
Okay, and will you say whether works will commence on the new Barbies River Bridge before elections? I know you said before you don't want to embark on any major...
Yes, I doubt it. Even if you award the contract, it takes a while to actually get mobilization and all of that. If you award a contract, it takes weeks or maybe months to negotiate the details of the contract. Like we had a team that included Bert Smith and a number of lawyers that work on the contract for the Harbor Bridge, and then one in Linden, etc. A team of three, four Guyanese lawyers and Gaskin, who was the engineer, etc. So it takes a while to even get the contract in place, and then you have to deal with the finances, maybe the advance, getting the advance, getting things like bonds to cover the advance. So the way I see it, might be very difficult to get it done, but the commitment is the bridge will be built, a 4-lane bridge, concrete bridge. So it will be completed in the next term in office.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo. Nas Williams, Culture News. Sir, can you please provide or probably shed some light on the ranks who were under close arrest in Region 3 and also the hotel owner, the ranks who were under close arrest in Region 3? And can you also provide an update on the hotel owner? Is he still in custody?
So I don't know who they are. I don't interfere in police the investigations. I think politicians should stay away from police investigations. But this is a question that you should pose to the Commissioner of Police or to the PR unit, because a lot of the media houses are part of a WhatsApp group with the police PR people. So why don't you pose the question in that group rather than ask a politician to tell you about which policeman, I gotta come here and tell you which policeman is on the close arrest, etc. I often, I try not to talk to the police, contrary to what people believe, that every day we tell the police what to do. I try not to talk to the police frequently, only on rights issue when I get charges of corruption and all of that. When people come here, then I deal with those matters, but not on operational issues. But it's legitimate to know about these issues, but I'm not going to, at a press conference on policies, try to deal with the police issue. Yes.
We have seen the U.S. has aided Ukraine during the war, spending approximately U.S. $130 billion, and now they're demanding that the country sign over resources worth approximately U.S. $500 billion. With the Venezuela border controversy and the U.S. pledging their support to us, do you believe that Ghana can suffer a similar fate? And also, can you say, if there's any cost attached to military exercises and operations spearheaded in Ghana by the U.S. government?
So I think that that is a superficial characterization of the issue. And I don't want to comment on the policy of President Trump as it relates to the war between Russia and Ukraine. President Trump has made it clear that he wants to see the fighting ended and a peace settlement made there. There are several interpretations of the agreement that was made between Ukraine and the US as it relates to mineral rights. And there have been several estimates as to what it will amount to. There have been several estimates as to how much money was given by the US to Ukraine and also in what form they took. So it's speculative for me to address that matter. Those questions should be best directed to the US ambassador. However, in relation to Venezuela, let me make it clear that we have a great working relationship with the United States of America on shared values, on values of democracy, peace in our hemisphere, and the maintenance of our territorial integrity and sovereignty. And there's been no request by the US for any quid pro quo here, nor any payments for that strong support that they've given, that Secretary of State Rubio spoke of. Now, I saw recently a vile post by someone who was close to the opposition and who claims he's part of a private sector group in relation to Venezuela, that Maduro should come to Guyana now. And I don't see any condemnation. He's associated with the PNC. And I don't know if AFC, but the PNC. But not a single condemnation of it. Not in the media, not in all of those groups who say the PPP is not doing enough, including the opposition, to propagate, propagate our positions globally, which is false, of course. But that person has been and is associated with the PNC. Vile comment to say Maduro should come now. It's disgusting. I don't see it in the mainstream media nor even the comment online, because he's not PPP. You let an unthinking PPP supporter make that comment like that. Then they would lay it at the doorstep of the PPP or anyone and make that seem as our national policy. As Cathy Hughes did when she lied in London telling people I'd offered Maduro or Chavez a route to the Atlantic in our territorial waters, which is a blatant lie. They did it. And a lot of the Kool-Aid supporters they repeat it until now, up to today. Up to today, they keep repeating it. The lie has been exposed, but they still keep lying about it. So, yes.
Sir, just for clarity, the any sorts of operations, military operations by the U.S., spearheaded by the U.S. in Ghana, there's no cost attached to that.
What military operations
Like
you're talking about?
Southcom and that kind of thing.
Like Southcom? Southcom is not a military operation. Southcom is the U.S. force, would be the U.S. forces in this hemisphere. What do you mean by that?
And
military operation? No, please, let me know.
That's fine. You would have said
That's just
to reach
fine.
out to the PR and the commissioner, but a number of my colleagues in the media would have been reaching out to the PR group, and as well, I myself would have reached out to the commissioner.
Well, then
and
they
we're not
should
getting
deal
any
with
sort
it.
of updates on this.
The PR group must deal with it. This is not, the police has its own PR group, and they must deal with these matters too and provide timely information, not just everything. And we as politicians, we have to find out all the time about operating issues. They have to step up on the PR front. I was pleased that they actually churned out quite a bit of information over the last few days about the people who are posting their pictures, and they should continue doing so. And the public should identify these people, and maybe they should even offer reward for information on these individuals. But they should really be doing this, stepping up their PR efforts.
Hi, Dr. Jagdeo. Shaquan Gill, DPI. Just a few questions. Firstly, we saw recently the motion that was laid by MP Figueroa in relation to a number of matters, but also suggesting that government should in some way rename the alert system after Adriana. Is there any decision or pondering by government to honor Adriana in that way or another?
I think we have to get past this period. We have to now complete the investigations, find out what's the truth. But personally, I don't have a problem with what it's named once, whether it's red alert or like in the US, it's amber alert, but I think it derived from a child, or Adrian's alert. That is something we can address in the future. Right now, we need to complete the investigations, find out what the truth of the matter is. So they have to question everybody who saw, all of the people who said they were seeing things and who have information. I hope they will come forward too, because now they're not showing up, anyone, and they're saying they heard it on social media, etc. So that's one. And but the key thing for me now is that they've changed the system. The system now says, from the moment you get a report on a child, you have to take action immediately. Don't wait for the 24 hours, which would have been the standard of the past.
Another question, could you give us an update in relation to the project that is being done with the zoo and botanical gardens?
Okay, so we're at the stage, they focus heavily, the team from the national park, they focus heavily on getting the tree planting exercise off. And so I think they're moving on that with the Forestry Commission. They have also started conceptually to look. We don't want to start anything until we have a proper concept in mind, that we know clearly what the big picture would look like at the zoo. So there's no rush to do that. We want to make sure that the concept is discussed and agreed to before we start taking any action.
Dr. Jagdeo, Luan Williams, DPI. Sir, Terence Campbell at a AFC press conference accused the government of having a private paramilitary force to quell lawful protest in the country. How do you respond to that?
I got a briefing on that when I was coming up here. So I think he linked it from the briefing I got that there was, when the police issued a statement that the civilian was sent on home who had been involved with or identified the wrong date for the video. So I think that was what he was linking it to. He clearly doesn't understand the difference between civilian employees and police. In most of the command centers now, you're going to have civilian employees. We're not going to take policemen to sit there all day and watch cameras and report on what they're saying. And basically, it's the control monitoring center. So I think it's a civilian function. Once they see transgressions, they're briefed as to what they have to report. Then that gets reported to the police. So the command center, it has to do like that. Then they had this rumor that they had another one where, but that's not what Terrence Campbell was speaking about. He was speaking about the other one. But then they had this rumor that sheriff security is embedded with the police and the army. No, we have enough policemen and soldiers and enough firepower than to use sheriff security to be embedded with the police and army. It's a fake report again. What they were confusing, and not just confusing, deliberately so, is that where the sheriff security was guarding a premise. So apparently when people went there to loot the premise, or those premises, they probably fired some shots, but they were not embedded with the police or the army. They were paid to protect the property that they were guarding and to prevent the looting. So they used that to say, oh, they're working with the state apparatus. Our soldiers, we have quite a few soldiers and police who can deal with these matters. So it's a blatant lie. It's a heavy rumor-based thing. And today, look at the AFC. If anyone could see how much of a lowlife this group is, they callously went back to hold their routine press conference just next to where this child was drowned, and to politicize the whole issue. You know, why would you go back to hold a press conference next to where this child drowned? It's just like capitalizing on people's grief, their anguish, their tragedy. It's a low-life sort of behavior that can only come from the Campbells and the Terrence and the Nigel Hughes and the others and Simona Brooms. Disgusting. It's totally disgusting. They are hoping that this would enhance their electoral fortunes. If anybody has any doubt about that, you're really dumb. If it has anything to do with anything else except for themselves, their own political motive. Has nothing to do with this child. They'll disappear a moment later. And so they're there now, went back there, capitalizing on the tragedy. Nobody was paying attention to them. Nobody is paying attention to them. So that's what they're doing. Can't generate nothing, because what are you going to tell people at the election time? Nigel Hughes. Up to now, he doesn't deal with the issue. He's Exxon payroll. Why don't you address that? 2, why don't you address the rigging of elections? He wouldn't address those things. Get away from every issue, but trying to create problems. And so this is a disgusting thing when I heard that they were going out there to hold their weekly press conference now. I'm saying, how low can you get? How low can you get? This is a typical AFC. Yes. Thank you.